Hello and welcome, everybody. Welcome to the No Name Music Cast. My name's Tim, and this is
Joy.
And here at the very top of the show, Joy and I were having a chat before we hit record and play, as always. Joy has a injury that she may or may not want to discuss, but it's all going on.
I will not tell the people what happened, but I burnt myself really bad before this episode, and it may have burnt through my own clothes, and that is something that I can't live down. I just can't.
It sounded incredibly painful. We don't need to go into details, but it sounded incredibly painful.
If Joy sounds slightly out of breath and in pain, she is. That is the moral of this statement. All right. Well, I will let Tim take it. I'm assuming he has a little bit of music news he'd like to bring to you peoples.
Yes, absolutely. So
I don't know why I said you peoples, like they're different, but I digress. Continue.
There we are. Well, I just got a couple of items of music news. Now, first things first, the Spotify. You know, I was a Spotify detractor, and now I'm fully embracing that world. I pay my $12 a month, and I'm in that world and, you know, fully embracing it. Well, anyhow, apparently this year, they're going to have a complete year of profitability.
Profitability. Okay, so like they're no longer investing money, like they're only making profit.
That's correct. It's funny, you know, Spotify has been around for 10 years, 15 years, something like that at this point, and they've never really made a profit. They've been burning through venture capital and not really making any money. But apparently this year, they're set to be fully profitable.
Well, what's so interesting about that, Tim, is because I work in I don't want to get into the details, but I work in a field where we have not accepted any outside money, right? All of our money comes from internal. And my boss has a very specific reason for that. But it is super interesting because we talk a lot about these other venture capitalists and how much funds they get from outside. That I feel like the average person does not realize how long it takes in these situations for you to start making a profit.
Absolutely. Well, apparently...
I don't even know that I know. You know what I mean, Tim? We just assume.
Absolutely. Well, the thing is with Spotify, they've saw an increase in active monthly users. 640 million people a month use Spotify. And they're up 12% on their paid subscribers. 252 million people worldwide pay for Spotify.
I mean, you would assume that would make money, but maybe not. I guess it depends on how much debt they win to get everything started. You know what I mean, Tim? It's hard to make a decision on that. I don't know. Absolutely.
And they're also talking about a super premium subscription tier, which they've been teasing for about 2 or 3 years now. Apparently in the $17, $18 a month mark, it's going to have better sound quality and AI playlists, and they're talking about getting into video. I mean,
sometimes that's always a little too much. Just stick with what you know.
Yeah, stick with your core product and people will come. The minute you start messing with it, it's bad news.
Do you know what the greatest example I can give of this, Tim? And you'll appreciate this is food. You know restaurants that have like 4 or 5 items they do a really good job at? And they're so good at it. But once they start expanding their menu, it almost becomes too much and like the quality suffers. Like Gordon Ramsay is a great example. I know he's a cliche, but he talks about this. He talks about know what you're good at and stick with it. Yeah, that's what I have to say to Spotify people who are obviously listening to our podcast, Tim. Obviously.
Well, this podcast is on Spotify, as you know, and I'm sure someone at Spotify probably checks every episode.
Yeah, right. Sounds good. Go Spotify, give me money. Do you think they heard? I don't know if they heard, but go Spotify, give me money.
Yay!
Anyway, did you have any other music news, Tim?
The only other music news is music news which probably shows my ignorance, but I'm going to say it anyway. So recently, it was the MTV Europe Music Video Awards.
Okay.
And they haven't had one of these for 7 years. So they've decided to have an MTV Europe Music Video
I didn't know that wasn't a thing they weren't doing, but okay.
So I still think it's funny that MTV on any level is having a music video awards because they don't show music videos.
It is kind of really weird, but I just think that they want something like eccentric to happen and get attention. That's what I think it is.
Well, anyhow, I was just going to go through some of the stars on the red carpet.
Ooh, okay.
And see if you've heard of any of these people.
I probably have before, Tim.
Yeah, I will tell you. Well, I'll get your reaction first and I'll tell you if I've heard of them. Okay. Singer Ray, R-A-Y-E.
0%. Don't know who that person is.
I don't know who that person is.
Okay.
Do you know the South African superstar Tyler?
Yes. I do know her, but I couldn't tell you one song, but I do know she's popular on the TikToks. That's
Oh,
all I got.
I've never heard of her.
All right,
Do,
what's
do
next?
you know who Rita Ora is?
Yes, and she's on The Masked Singer right now as a judge.
Ah, someone I've never heard of.
She's kind of like, to be fair to him, she's very run-of-the-mill pop star. But she kind of is in the lines of think of your average like British pop star. That's what she is.
Okay. The US singer Teddy Swims.
Are you speaking English? I don't know.
I have no idea who that is.
Okay. Apparently he's English.
Do you know
Who's
who
next?
do you know who Benson Boone is?
No. Tim, are you sure these are real names? Because generally, at least the American ones, I know their names, but the British ones are really throwing. I have no clue. Got nothing.
Ollie Alexander.
No. We're doing it really bad at this. All right, what's next?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure these people are important to somebody, but I haven't idea. And it's like a benchmark. If you've never heard of these people, I mean, that's like a benchmark for me.
Yeah, but the thing about it is I feel like it is interesting. Sometimes I feel like it. Oh, so like Rita Ora has gotten a little bit of like traction. A few of her songs have become hits in America, right? And they're on TikTok and different things like that. And I see her on The Masked Singer, and she has like a face that's known in America. The rest of them, I just don't know. And I don't mean that to be like, America's the best. I just think that me and Tim have talked about on this podcast a lot. Sometimes you just don't know what transcends. That's not to say that's good or bad. Sometimes we just don't know. Tim will be dead set on like an artist, and I'll be like, who are you talking about? And then I do the same thing to him.
Yeah, I mean that's true. But I'm firmly of the opinion that a lot of these newer
Well, you
acts,
have
nobody
your
knows
whole,
who they
okay,
are.
boomer. Everybody, Tim's 1,000 years old.
And you would be correct, Joy.
But in all seriousness, no. The only one I do recognize is Rita Ora, and that's because I watched The Masked Singer. Let's be honest. And that is, a guilty pleasure of mine, which Tim thinks is absolutely ridiculous. But to be fair, I think Tim's wrestling obsession is absolutely ridiculous in a different way.
Yeah, well, the only ridiculous thing about you watching The Masked Singer is that you had an antenna and you could pick up over-the-air TV. That's the bit that shocked me the most. You watching The Masked Singer is fine. The fact that you had an antenna and put it in your TV, that's the bit that got me.
I'm predicting this episode is going to be off the Richters. I can already feel it, guys. It's coming. It's coming down the line. All right, Tim, do you have anything else for the people at the beginning?
No,
okay.
that's all. That's all I have for everyone.
I have the weirdest news article anyone's ever heard of before I get to my topic. So, Yoko Ono was elected today. I don't know if elected's the right word, was picked, won the case to be the rightful owner of John Lennon's stolen watch.
Well, I mean, Yoko Ono was John Lennon's wife, so she was probably in charge of the John Lennon estate. So if it's a piece of property that belonged to John Lennon,
it was given to her as a gift and it was stolen, so it's even weirder than that, Tim.
Oh.
So I got a whole story for you. So basically what happened was this is a Swiss court. So it was a Swiss related like court case. It was in Switzerland. But basically in Geneva, they decided today a rare watch given to John Lennon. So I guess John Lennon was given this watch by Yoko Ono. So she gave him the watch.
Okay.
And which was stolen after his death. Apparently, they decided does not belong to an Italian man who bought it from an auction house years later. A Swiss court ruled on Thursday, paving the way for its return to Ono. I'm not even mad at like the guy. I think he just bad situation. He got sold something that really shouldn't have been sold.
Sure.
So basically, this watch, which is from Petit Philippe, don't come for me, internet. I don't know how I'm supposed to say that. Some fancy watch name. I'm not rich, okay? Was estimated at 4 million Swiss francs, which is about 4.5 million USD. Was a 40th birthday joy gift to the former Beatle from the Japanese artist Ono in 1980, just about 2 months before his assassination, sadly. It bears the inscription, just like starting over, love, Yoko Ono, 10/9/1980 in it, NYC on the back. And it's an 18 karat gold face. From a line Apparently, it's a line from a song composed together. I don't know. They had a lot of music. I'm just going to tell you guys, I did not listen to Yoko Ono's music. Come from the internet. It's just not my cup of tea, okay? They
No,
probably did write this song together.
Yoko Ono is an artist, a visionary artist, and created much art pieces throughout the years. But what the kind of music that she makes is very difficult to listen to.
It's a very specific person who would like it, right, Tim? I'm not them.
No.
Tim's not either. But basically, there have been two prior judgments from the Geneva court in 2022 and 2023. And basically, I don't know, she's been fighting this Italian man who lives in China for a long time to get this watch back. It was stolen back in the day. I can't even find out exactly who stole it, but apparently she says it was a Turkish chauffeur in 2006. I don't know. Y'all, somehow it went from the Turkish chauffeur in not 2006, 1986 to the Italian man. And she's been fighting this man in court for like a bajillion years now to try to get this watch back. And it's officially hers.
Well,
there you go.
I am pleased that Yoko's finally got the watch back. I can rest easy, Joy.
I mean, I wasn't really worried about it, but I just thought it was kind of interesting. It's just a random story that, you don't really see that often.
No, absolutely not.
All right. So tonight's episode is a fan-filled episode, as we love. There may have been a Facebook poll that Tim was blocked from. Da-da-da! That happened at like 3 hours ago because Joy is not good at planning. But I digress. I wanted to do an episode. So Tim knows that I've been doing these little I wanted to do like a happy intro to all of our episodes because I wanted to promote happiness. So tonight's episode, I asked many listeners, a handful of listeners, to give me their songs that make them feel happy.
Happiness songs.
So, and we had a lot of people, 16 people actually, Tim, came in and gave us their songs.
Very nice.
So, with that being said, Sass has not answered Sass. I told her she had less than 10 minutes a while ago and I haven't heard back, but she answered during the episode. I'll refresh. But with that being said, I asked them, I said, give me your favorite songs that make you feel happy and why. Literally, no one gave me why. Everybody just said, this song makes me feel happy. So I don't have real reasons. But we will start with Tom Haynes, who was on the episode. He has his own band. He did his own episode with us.
Yep.
He may or may not be in a relationship with Sass, who is a listener of this podcast, who is still thinking on her song. He picked, and this I find interesting because I feel like this is very British, but I am familiar with this song. He did give us a little bit of background. He said the Wild Hearts, Top of the World. Are you familiar with this song, Tim?
I'm not. I know the Wild Hearts, and he spoke of the Wild Hearts at length on his episode. I'm familiar with the genre that the Wild Hearts play and some of their music, but I'm not familiar with that particular song.
I'm not super familiar with the song, but I do think it was a very UK special. He says, oh, I missed a bit about explanation. And then he just went into his explanation afterwards. He said, back when I first played Download Festival in 2008, I had this song in my head after coming off, and it was such a surreal weekend. It kind of summed up the whole mood for the weekend. And this weekend was very important for me as a musician. Tim's played many festivals he likes. Recently, the Wild Hearts played on Sunday, and were the last band I saw at the festival before we left. They didn't play the song, but Ginger was far from sober when he played. And so most of the time talking him bullocks that's the most British thing I've ever said. Talking bullocks. I can't say that seriously, Tim. I can't. He had an X thrown at him during their set and he managed to catch it and it didn't break. That's pretty good. They then put it down and it smashed. Anyway, they played it great, but ended up turning off as they massively overran due to Ginger talking. It's extremely memorable, but this song to this day still sticks out to me as my favorite song and that moment in my life.
Well,
Tom's words.
Yeah, sometimes it's like that. You're at a festival or you're at an event and there's some song playing and it really just defines that whole experience for you in your mind. And then when you come back to that thought, that song sort of channels the whole thing together.
I agree with you on that. And I think that sometimes funny moments are just as important. Like, I feel like everybody just thinks about like these serious moments, right, Tim? And so I love it. I love that he has a specific. Also, Tim, have you ever caught an egg while playing at a show? That's pretty talent, man.
No, no one.
An
I mean,
egg.
luckily, no one has ever thrown an egg at me. I've never juggled an egg on stage. As I said before, I've had a 2 liter Tango orange bottle thrown at my head while I was playing, and I ducked out the way. That's probably the closest I've come to that.
But in and of itself, an egg is really weird. Like, who had an egg at this music festival, and why did I have so many questions? Because of all the things you could have at a music, I understand a shoe, right, Tim? We all have shoes. I understand even a drink because you might be drinking the drink, right? Shirt, bra, things you see thrown on stage, right, Tim?
Sure.
But who was carrying an egg in their pocket?
Somebody who brought them with them for ammunition. That's who brought the egg with them.
Who are these people and what are they doing? I have so many questions because a lot of things, because like in and of itself, I can't even cook food without burning myself, as we discovered. I could not bring an egg. Like, how do you get through a music festival all the way on Sunday, the final band of the concert, and that egg is still in good condition?
Well, you have it in the egg box.
I mean, egg cart, as Americans would say, but fine.
Box, carton,
Does
same thing.
the UK put their eggs in the fridge, or do they not require because of pasteurization? I know butter is not in the fridge.
I would have. I mean, living in England, I would have put butter in the fridge and eggs in the fridge.
Well, there you go. I've been lied to, everybody. No one's telling me the truth around here. But I do know with pasteurization, not every country puts eggs and butter in the fridge. Does that make sense, Tim? Like,
Yeah.
So I wasn't sure. All right. Well, apparently eggs are refrigerated. Fine. All right. So our second, and I just have a list. I'm going to go through all the lists that people gave us, and then from there we will. If we don't have enough, I'll just go through the list that I found on Reddit, the songs that make people happy. So my twin sister Brandy, we're very familiar with her. She said "Good Vibrations" from the Beach Boys. She goes, "I have zero reason for giving you that. It just makes me happy."
Well, I mean, it's a great song. I mean, it's classic Beach Boys. It's one of those songs that you hear and it immediately takes you to that time.
But for what it's worth, if we're going to get to technicality, Tim, and I know that's hard because, we talk about the wall of sound. We talk about like the kind of structure of songs and that pop music formula, right? That clear pop music formula. I do know this about this song because this is from, this is one I did do a lot of diving into the Beach Boys previously. It was the most expensive song made at its time. When it was made, it was the most expensive song made, which in my mind kind of feels humorous because when you listen to it, it seems so simple, right? But that's what's so good about it. That's what we don't get. And I feel like I preach this on this podcast, Tim, and maybe to the point that I'm on my soapbox. Our brains and our ears like simple. It like structure, it like simple, right? And this song hits all of those notes. Am I crazy or am I like, do you get what I'm saying?
No, people like patterns. And that's why popular music is so popular, because there's a repeating chorus, a repeating verse, introduction, a theme throughout the song. This song has got a lot going on with regards to the way that the vocals are stacked. And I believe it has a theremin on it.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think that's a theremin.
I think so too. I mean, Brian Wilson he composed a lot of music, right, Tim? He was a wonderful composer, had this ear for that wall of sound. So we've talked about the wall of sound. And for those who don't know, it's at that point in time in music when they started building on itself, right? All those different layers we hear is literally what they mean by the wall of sound. And the reason the wall of sound worked so well is because it sounds really good on a jukebox. Tim probably knows the mechanics behind that more than Joy will ever know. That's just what I've been told 1,000 times. And I hear it though now when I listen, like if you put on a set of headphones and you hear the different sounds, right? You put on a set of headphones nowadays, there's many songs on the Spotify, as Tim would call it, where you can tell this song's coming over here, this sound, we got stereo, we got audio, we got all those different sounds. I'm not an expert on any of that. But what I did find was super interesting is I didn't know that this song is known to have a lot of complex soundscapes in it. And that's what and me and Tim have always said, we're not huge, like, everybody talks about Pet Sounds. Pet Sounds is the #1 album of all time. But what's interesting is they did play on a lot of different sounds. And I think that's very similar to what people found in the Beatles, right? Just in a different way. Me and Tim, I think, tend to be more drawn to the Beatles naturally than the Beach
Hmm.
Boys. And that's never good or bad. If you love the Beach Boys, love the Beach Boys. I'm not insulting them. But I do find it very interesting. Most expensive single ever recorded. But when I hear it, Tim, it sounds so simple.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, technology was in its infancy, and maybe they just had two 8-track machines synchronized together. Maybe it was a lot of overdubs. Maybe they spent 2 complete days in a studio recording it. And at the time, for pop music, that was probably, that's why it was so expensive.
Tim was right. There is a theremin on it and a cello. There's
Ah,
two. I scrolled down on that thing that looks like encyclopedia, everybody.
hmm,
And yeah, it says that. Tim is correct.
there we go.
And apparently that was a Wilson influenced thing. He influenced the theremin for the track. He says radio listeners could easily pick up the link between the title and the obvious electronic riffs throughout the song. But Wilson's use of the theremin added an extra delicious parallel because it plays, kind of parallel to the other music between the single's theme and the use of the instruments that had ever been touched on a pop track before. So, Good Vibration does not technically feature a theremin, but rather an electro theremin. I didn't know it was a thing. Tim probably could explain that, which is physically controlled by a slider, which I could see that visually. I know what they're talking about, that turns a knob inside the instrument. Does that make sense to you, Tim? You could probably explain that better to the people than I
Yeah.
can.
So a theremin is a instrument which uses radio waves to change the pitch, and it has an antenna or aerial poking out of it, and you put your hand there and it goes woo. And one of the great examples of a theremin is the score music to Ghostbusters.
Okay.
That is full of theremin. That kind of
Oh, okay. I see what you're
spooky
saying
sound,
now.
that is a theremin. And what they're describing is that when you use a theremin, it's very random in nature because you're pushing your hand towards and away from the antenna of the theremin, and the pitch is shooting up and down. And yes, you can control it to some degree, but it's not completely controlled. What they're describing is having the pitch of the theremin controlled by a volume knob or a potentiometer or a fader or something, so you can be a lot more deliberate and accurate where
Okay,
you
that
want the
makes
note pitches to
sense.
be.
Yeah, I can visually see. I've seen people play a theremin like physically, so I know what Tim's saying, but I don't understand the mechanics behind it. This is why Tim's on the podcast, guys. I think he's like smart or something. I don't know. He's like a smart guy
Of a fashion.
of fashion. That's the most British thing you've ever said. All right. So moving along, we have another person here. Now, I'm going to skip the Lizzo song. I'm going to give a shout out to Jen because I love Truth Hurts by Lizzo, but I know Tim will have zero ability to talk about this song. So shout out to Jen. Move to the song that I think Tim will know a little bit about. Great
Okay.
song. We'll make Tim listen to Lizzo on another episode. It's on my list of things to do.
Okay.
He looks so excited, y'all. The smile on his face. His eye didn't twitch at all.
Well, you know what's going to happen is that the Spotify Wrapped is going to come out soon, and it's going to have Harry Styles on it. I just know that.
And in Tim's defense, we put off that episode like 3 different times. So we both just had to keep listening to the album on repeat so we didn't forget what we were talking about. Brittany, you owe us. We just talked about your song, and that episode was for you. And me and Tim are now, hairstyles will never leave our brain. Anyway, I digress. So Truth Hurts, Lizzo, wonderful song, great song, love it. Moving along. This is a song that was popular in the UK. I don't know how much my American friends would know this, but I know this song only because I was part of that weird chat room that I'm convinced Tim's UK friends were in back in the day. So this is called The Loving Affair. Or The Love Affair. The most popular is Everlasting Love by The Love Affair. Let me restate that. There's like 70 different versions of this song, Everlasting Love. Are you familiar with this, Tim?
Yes, I know the song Everlasting Love. That's the sort of track that they would play in the Lakeside Country Club when I had a Christmas residency there about 20 years ago.
I feel like it's been done by like a bunch of different artists. I've heard it by multiple artists.
Oh, yeah, it's a standard almost.
So this was submitted by Sarah Patrick. She says that the Everlasting Love is her favorite, makes her feel good, loves it. Which I understand because I know U2 has a version. I think Gloria Estefan has a version. I don't know. The list goes on. If you're not familiar with Everlasting Love, well, I do think it is a known for the version that was done that we were just talking about, Love Affair, which is a UK band. I mean, it was originally done by Motown. It's a Motown song.
Yeah, 100%.
So, I mean, if you love Motown, you've heard of this song. Back to my point, though. And so it was originally recorded in Nashville, which is kind of crazy to me. And it's very reminiscent of the Four Tops. You got like the Temptations, right, Tim? It gives that vibe. So I understand how this song would make you happy.
Yeah, it's got that real kind of pumping beat and it's up tempo. And I mean, it's a great song.
Do you think was it popular in the UK, the version that she's talking about by the Love Affair? I feel like that was probably the version you guys knew the most.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I just know it from places like where I played in nightclubs 20 years ago and they play things like that.
Fair, Tim. I didn't know there was a UK version. That's not what I was saying. YouTube version until we did this podcast. And now I really want to go seek that out because I don't know how to feel about that.
Yeah, I mean, you too. I mean, so I understand.
Have you heard it?
No, but I do know the drummer is fine.
Okay, I'll give Tim that. I mean, well, I do think that they played on their what was it in the last episode? They literally had the cars running around the stage on repeat as they drove by. Tim was like, "Yeah, that sounds like the most." I love what you went. Yeah, that sounds like you too. On the episode, I just like had to laugh because it's so honestly it is. It really is. All right, so I have the next listener who put their song in, Tim. As I said, we got 16 options. It may be my husband. This is Charlie Thompson, if anyone didn't know this. And he picked a very song that is not going to surprise Tim in any way. It is Enya, Only Time.
Yeah, I mean, Charlie has a certain taste in music. Big, bombastic, but also he likes Weird Al and Tenacious D. But like the fact that he loves Enya doesn't surprise me. I mean, I remember when Enya came out, Enya had that song Orinoco Flow, which for our UK listeners,
it makes my eye twitch at this point. But continue.
Yeah. For our UK listeners, it's nothing to do with the Wombles, but that's a story for another time.
I'll take your word for it. Continue.
Okay. But she has a very particular sound. She is an Irish singer. She sort of works in this kind of medium where it's heavily layered.
It sounds like you
vocals.
should be going to sleep at all times.
Yeah, it's heavily layered, like orchestral type music, Enya. And, you know, she in that genre of music, she's probably the most defining example of that. And my understanding is that Enya has made a lot of money and done very well for herself with this, lives in some castle in Ireland, never does interviews, releases this Enya music periodically, and there we go.
Well, as a woman who is married to a husband who makes her listen to Enya on the regular, Tim is right. I just Googled it while Tim was talking. Do you want to guess where her net worth is? 150 million USD.
Yeah, I could believe that because, you know, she more or less invented that genre. And then, you know, that is a definitive article.
And however, Tim said, what did you say? Or say it better than I did. What is the flow thing? The sail away people.
Yeah, the Orinoco Flow.
So for those who don't know what Tim talked about, that's the Sail Away song she has.
Yep.
Which I hear and I want to go to sleep every night because Charlie plays this a lot when we go to bed. It sounds like a song that would be played when you're getting a massage or something, right, Tim? I'm not crazy. Like that's the vibes it gives.
That's what it's like.
Like that's not even a joke. So, but this song specifically is one that Charlie listens to all the time. And to be fair, it really does. What she does a really good job is, while it does sound like you should be going to sleep, it's almost like, and this is a good example of why Charlie likes them. What's the rock band that comes around and does the different concerts during the Christmas time? My brain's going blank.
The Trans-Siberian Orchestra.
It's the same thing where the vibes like go from like very small to big. Like, you know what I mean, Tim? It's almost like, for lack of a better word, it's almost like an opera. Mm-hmm. Would be the way I describe Indian music. Like it'll go from here to here, and she plays on the harmonies and builds and layers them so perfectly with the music that it's beautiful. Her voice becomes one with the music. Actually, if you listen to it the way I've heard it, and that's the best way I can explain it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's like you say, it is music that you would have if you're getting a massage, if you're relaxing, if you're trying to fall asleep. Maybe a bit of Enya on.
But what's super interesting about Only Time was when I was looking this up, I was looking through all of these songs as people were commenting on the post, right, Tim? Mm-hmm. And This one specifically, I did not know this. All the money she made off this song went to the 9/11 victims.
Oh, wow.
Did not know. I thought that was really cool.
I did not know that she was a philanthropist. That's hard to say at
But
8 p.m.
that's what's so interesting is Enya is such a like Tim said, she just kind of hides out in her castle. I kind of love that we didn't know that. She just did it and it wasn't a big deal. Does that make sense,
Yeah,
Tim?
yeah.
That almost, I'm not saying that that makes it better, but it went to the Uniformed Firefighters Association to help families of firefighters in the aftermath of 9/11.
Well, good on you, Enya.
So I don't think Charlie knew that, but that adds an extra layer, words, hard words, hard words. Words are hard, Tim.
Yeah.
Those things, extra layer of what we're talking about. All right. So Jenny, who we haven't talked about very much, Jenny Lynch, she is a friend of me and Tim's. She does live in England. She is in a band with Saz. I don't think she's come up too much of the podcast. She did comment, and she says a song that Tim will have very specific feelings about because he is an aficionado of this song. She picked Love Shack.
Yeah, so let me explain this. So during the lockdown period, I was involved with this Radio Freak Jam. And what that is I used to be in this open mic night, jam night called the Freak Jam, or just the Jam as we called it at the time. And we used to
Now
play
we're all freaks, I guess. I don't know.
Well, we had an original band called Freak 1C, which is why
I'm
it
sure
ended up
that's where it came
being
from.
the Freak Jam. And during the COVID era, the venue that they actually moved the jam to long after I left England, it's been going for 25 plus years probably. They had to move their operations online because obviously all the pubs closed down. You couldn't perform. And our friend Ian Jam, or Ian Husbands, I call him Ian Jam, he masterminded moving this thing onto YouTube. And then what you do is you connect from your home and then you would sing and you play guitar and all this kind of stuff. But of course, I was introduced to a lot of new people that I'd never met before. And there was Zoom calls and there was other quizzes and other things that people were doing. So I got to know a lot of people. And much like when you're at the jam in real life, you meet people you've never met before and you make music with them and it's fun. So a lot of people were starting to sort of recreate this kind of feel, collaborating with people they hadn't met before. So I was on the show one week as a co-host. And then Love Shack came up and I said, I've retired from Love Shack because I've performed Love Shack in bands for many years. But I decided I was going to retire it because I thought it was a little bit played out. But I said to Ian, I said, if someone wanted to do an online collaboration with Love Shack, I'd do it one more time. And then 15 seconds later, I get a message from Jenny going, I'll do Love Shack with you. So,
which we love.
Yeah. So she went to Josh's studio. She recorded her vocals.
Good old Josh Bacon.
Yep. She recorded the video side of it. I recorded the backing track from scratch. I played guitar on it. And then I quote unquote sang my part. And
it was very singing, everybody.
Yeah, I can't sing. It's close enough. And then I put the track together and I edited the video. And then it premiered on Radio Freak Jam. And it's up on YouTube. If you want to put my name, Tim O'Sullivan Love Shack, you can find it if you want to see it. So it is a how can I put it? It's an artifact of the COVID era. But I think it's good. Jenny is a really, really good singer.
She has a great voice. Yeah, it's very good.
She should have had someone who's a proper singer on the track and not me. But it was fantastic. And then I will say, when I went to mix the track, she did like 2 or 3 backing vocal takes. And they were all fantastic. And I was able to use a lot of that. And the way that it sits across the stereo spectrum with her backing vocals is really good.
She seems to have a natural ear, I think is what it comes down to. But I've heard her version. She does a great job. Love Shack's a hard song to judge someone's vocal range. You know what I mean, Tim? Because it's not that complicated, but she does a great job. And I've heard her sing other things. She's the lead singer of a band that Saz is in. I think she's very talented.
Yeah, and in fact, we did another song. We did Pat Benatar's "Hit Me with Your Best Shot."
Which is Pat Benatar is like what I say with Heart, Tim. It takes a good. I don't know how to explain it. Heart and Pat Benatar, those are 2 artists that I think of that you have to have chops to be able to do.
Yeah, and with "Hit Me with Your Best Shot," I stuck to doing what I know best, which is playing guitar and mixing and editing and not singing. She sang on that track, and it was absolutely fantastic.
Well, that is what she said. She says, of course, it's a fun song and I love it, but for an obvious reason, it puts a smile on my face. So there you go. Tim explained it all. That's what Ginny recommended. Okay, so we're going to give Charlie two songs, but
Okay.
only because I want to talk about this song and because three people commented and said, that's a great option. We love this. So Charlie said, I believe in a thing called love because we love in this, we love their, oh my God. My brain just went blank. We love, I believe in a thing called love in this place. We've talked about them 1,000 times at this point, right, Tim?
Yeah, I mean the darkness are fantastic.
Are
I always
fantastic.
get the feel that the darkness never fully cracked the US market.
I-
I think they're a UK Europe phenomenon. And I mean, most people
Most
here,
Americans think they're a one-hit wonder.
yeah, they think I Believe in a Thing Called Love is their only song, but they've got albums and albums out.
I know. I know this because I've sought them out because I loved I Believe in a Thing Called Love. But to Americans' credit, Tim, here's what happened was, and I have very distinct memories of this because this is when I was in the height of my pop punk take over the world, Joy's a rebel without a cause phase, right? So she was watching. So in America, we had two music channels. We had MTV and we had Fuse. MTV was your classic Backstreet Boys, Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera kind of thing, right? And then you had Fuse. Fuse came out when I was in, I don't know, probably the early 2000s when I was in my pop, what is now known as pop punk because it is kind of poppy, but it was, what was popular punk music at the time. I did listen to a lot of alternative rock and things of that nature. Now, to be clear, guys, I will say this again. I do not listen to some alternative rock, which is kind of like Nickelback, Hinder, those type. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking more like Bowling for Soup, Good Charlotte, that type band. So in my mind, that's where the darkness sits. And so what happened is the darkness came out with the best music video of all time for I Believe in a Thing Called Love, right?
Yeah.
With the spaceship and the alien and then what's the word I'm looking for? What's the octopus, right? And he's
Yeah, it
wearing
was
the
like some kind of
70s outfit.
some kind of space creature.
So there's a very distinct moment in my life. So Fuse would do their version of TRL. So MTV did TRL for Total, Recall Live or whatever it was. And basically that's it when you came home from school in America. That's about the timing, right? Right around 3 to 5. They would do like the top hits, kind of like Top of the Pops, I imagined it in the UK.
Yeah.
So when Fuse kind of tried to combat that. Like, we're not into all this pop music now. Let's have the pop punk world, right?
Yeah.
And I got older and thought, I liked both, but like I listened to both. But I really got there was a scene where I was really into Fuse. And Charlie was into it, Brady was into it, all my friends were really into it. We thought we were going to change the world. I digress. But anyway, so with that being said, we were in our alternative moment. And whatever the darkness did in that moment with that music video just killed. I have never, when a song, everybody knows it instantly. We don't have to talk about it. Everybody's singing it. Think like Jolene from Dolly Parton, right?
Yeah.
In that moment, everyone I had ever met, pop, not pop, American, non-American, white, black, Hispanic. Everybody just knew this song. And I swear it's because they killed it with, well, first of all, the song was fantastic. It was a play on every 70s. It almost felt like Queen, right? In its own right, Tim. And that's what they did. They did it so well, and that speaks to us at our core. But the music video was so good on Fuse in America. That's how that song made it in America, but the rest of theirs didn't as much. So for people like me who cared about the music, I went and bought the album. And so I know the rest of the songs because I went and bought the album, but not very many other people did. But I still have this distinct memory sitting in French class. This boy, his name, and he's listening. I'm embarrassed to say this, but I had the biggest crush on you, but I digress. You sat in front of me and you were one day before the bell rang. I remember you singing, I Believe in a Thing Called Love. And it still sticks out in my brain. And that was one of the moments that I realized everybody just knows the song. I don't know if that was like probably bigger than it needed to be, Ted, but that's kind of an explanation, I think, of why this song was so, because Fuse was just playing it. And it was like the alternative to MTV. And we thought we were super cool by going to Fuse.
Yeah.
And that's where it was. It was like, The Darkness, AFI, Silver and Coal, MCR, My Chemical Romance, all of those bands. That's what was being played on Fuse. And we thought we were, the super coolest.
Yeah. I mean, in England, it was very much mainstream. It was played on the radio. The video was on Top of the Pops and stuff like that. And the whole of that Permission to Land album by The Darkness
Fantastic.
is really strong. I mean, I love Love on the Rocks with No Ice.
I knew Tim was going to say that. It is Tim's favorite. Like we said it 1,000 times. We even have Wispy on air, he has his claim to fame. If you don't, what episode was that? We talked about that. Was that episode?
It was the one where we did a deep dive on Permission to Land, and it turns out friend of the show Wispy, who's a member of the Freak Jam and a musician friend of ours, he actually worked in that video because that's what he does by trade. Is he works on video.
It was just cool. I just shared it one night, like a video, because I was, the one Tim loves the music video for with the bear at the end or whatever.
Yeah.
But anyway, I shared it on Facebook, and Wispy was like, "I worked on these," and I was like, "Wait a minute, we need you." Wispy was like, "Okay." So anyway, but yeah, so there you go. That's why I think, I don't mean to like get off on a tangent, but that's why I think in America that song specifically sits with us. But Charlie's right, it is a good dopamine hit, Tim. If I need a dopamine hit and I put on I Believe in a Good Thing Called Love, it hits every time, no matter what the mood is.
Yep, it is superb.
All right, so next, my mother did not give us a great. But I'm going to put her favorite song that I personally know she loves. She just said any disco song. And that is why Joy loves disco. I've said for many times on this podcast, I grew up on Motown and I grew up on disco, right? And early 90s country and then everything in between. We listened to a lot of 80s too. But I'm going to go with Super Freak because that is my mom's all-time favorite jam. And I have a very specific Rick James related story. So obviously I'm talking about Super Freak from Rick James. If you don't know that song, I assume you're living under a rock, but I digress. What's funny is so I joke about, my family loves music trivia. Like I joke about I was in music trivia before I should have been in Yahoo chat room. So we would get these, and this is a very specific niche thing, but we would get these DVDs that you could buy at like the grocery store or Walmart or whatever, and they had music trivia on them. Mm-hmm. Back in the day when people were and they were called Shout It Out or something like that. And we would play them. Me and my mother, my twin sister, my dad, we would all sit down and we would play them. And we had fun doing it. And that's probably why I'm the person that I am. But one day, and I feel really bad about this looking back, we put her on the spot, Tim. Rick James Super Freak came on this DVD. Sorry, guys, I started coughing. Rick James Super Freak came on this DVD. And everybody went silent because we just assumed Mom was going to yell it out, right? Because that was the point. Shout it out.
Yeah.
And she got nervous and didn't know what to say. And so we're all just staring at her. And she's like, what? And we're like, Mom, it's literally your song. And she's like, but I've said this before, like the weird things where people are like, oh, you're wearing a Michael Jackson shirt and they put a microphone in your face. Name 7 Michael Jackson songs. If you did that to me, Tim, I probably would freeze up and not be able to do it.
Yeah,
but we did that to my mom in that moment.
Yeah, because when you're put on the spot like that, you don't always think of it straight away.
But I'm assuming Tim knows Rick James.
Of course I know.
Guys.
I was watching a David Letterman clip the other day interviewing Rick James, in fact.
Oh, well, that was probably interesting. He's an interesting guy.
Yeah, this was from the 80s as well.
Wow, that means there might have been some drugs.
Certainly not Joy.
Never. We've never heard of drugs before. But I mean, to be fair, though, Super Freak is a great song. Yeah. It's a great song.
And I think it's one of the few non-Queen songs that appears in the Bohemian Rhapsody film.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that, but you're probably right. When is it played?
It's in the party scene where Freddie's having this massive party and Brian and Roger are looking bored, and Freddie's having the best time he's ever had with all these new friends, and Super Freak is playing in the background.
Well, there you go. Have you played this one on any of your bands throughout the years, Tim?
No, never played Super Freak.
Really? I would think that would be one that you would have done.
It hasn't come up. Played Brick House by the Commodores.
Basically the same song.
Yes, it's similar.
It's very similar, but it's so interesting to me, I guess, because I've just been around Super Freak, like I said. That's what I picked for my mom because she loves that song.
Yeah.
But I guess I would have just assumed. Okay, well, there we go, guys. All right. I have no clue who this person is. I'm only going to say it because I think Tim knows something, and then we'll get into a song that I actually know. Jillian Bond, whatever you would call her. She's a friend of the podcast, a friend of the Freak Jam. She said, Noah Khan's Stick Season? Is that the one that she talks about? She had like this attractive or something, Tim. Is that him?
So say the name again.
Noah Khan?
I don't
Okay.
know.
Well, we're going to go to a song I know we do know. And that's R.E.M. Shiny Happy People.
Yeah, Shiny Happy People is a great song. It features the singer. I think is it Kate Jackson or Kate somebody from the B-52s appears
Yes.
on this track.
You are correct. It is, what is her name? Because she's got the big hair. I know what you're talking about. Hold on.
It's Kate somebody.
Kate Pearson.
Pearson. There we go. It wasn't Kate Jackson. It was Kate Pearson. Now,
I just could imagine the hair. That's all I could see.
this was a big hit, and it was a really good song. But I know that like way after the fact, that R.E.M. got super dismissive about it. Oh no, this isn't what we do, and this isn't, we don't channel this, and it's like just you've released it, and it's great. Just own it. It's fantastic.
So, you know what's super interesting that I learned about this song, Tim, though, and I only learned this recently. So, on Friends, the remembrance, I'll be there for you. It's like a famous, and everybody does the clap, and it's like a famous thing for people who like Friends, right?
Yeah.
I was a big, I love Friends. I'm a big Friends, like, aficionado. On the unaired pilot, before it became, like, popular, Shiny Happy People was going to be the theme song.
Wow. So did they just use it as a placeholder in the pilot, or was this going to be the one that they use?
I have no clue. They just say that was there was a decision to be made, and they decided to go with "I'll Be There for You." But it is kind of interesting thing, Shiny Happy People. I mean, I don't know if there was a cutoff or whatever. I will say, "I'll Be There for You" does give a little bit more of a theme song to me than, because you're talking about Friends. "I'll Be There for You." Shiny Happy People is just like kind of generic. So maybe there was just a writer's kind of decision. I have no clue, but that's what they said.
There we go. Well, fun fact, Joy, I've never seen a single episode of Friends.
That's depressing, but I'll worry about that later. I mean, I just imagine that it wasn't as popular in the U. Okay, don't come for me, people who are in England. I know UK doesn't always sub up. It's hard for me to understand all the differences that happen. England, Ireland, Scotland, all those people, Wales, who's listening. But was it just not as popular?
No, it was incredibly popular, but I never wanted to watch it, and I've never seen it since.
It's a little bit depressing, but we'll worry about that later.
I mean, there was probably an episode of the A-Team to watch or something. I don't know, Magnum PI.
So what was kind of interesting, though, and this is not happy, ironically, because we're talking about Shiny Happy People. Apparently, Shiny Happy People was taken from a Chinese propaganda used in Tiananmen Square. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
That adds a little, how when we talk about you think everything's all happy-go-lucky, but maybe it isn't? There you go, guys. Not to disappoint anybody who really likes Shiny Happy People. Now, I have a very distinct memory of Shiny Happy People, and I'll say it. So, speaking of shows, Tim's never watched Clueless, the movie.
Yep, never
and the
seen
TV
that.
show. So there was the movie, but there was a TV show that was on for a short amount of time. I love the TV show. In the TV show, there is a part where they're trying to clean up their local something that happens, right? Something happens and they have to go clean up whatever. It was community service, but for college, for high schoolers, and it wasn't really community service. I digress. And there was a song that played in the background in their montage of cleaning. It was Shiny Happy People. And I remember this from when I was a kid. I had a very distinct memory of this scene and that song, but I, for the life of me, could not find it. I thought it was going to be Our House. I thought for a second, maybe that was it, in the middle of it, but it wasn't. It was Shiny Happy People.
Yeah.
And I spent years, just kind of like we talk about Slade, Run Away. I spent years finding this song because that episode of Clueless, everybody. Didn't know what it was, couldn't, and I knew the song and I knew the show, but I couldn't. Have you ever had that moment where you know these things, but you don't connect them until you hear it, until you're thinking about it together?
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes you might be Googling or YouTube searching to find it, to try and tie all those pieces together.
And then when I heard it, I was like, there we go, found it. And it is the perfect montage song. So, like, come on. It's the perfect montage song. All right. Sass said, we'll move along. She just said, tough, actually. And I said, you got 28 minutes. And she hasn't said anything. So, we're going to go with my father. Since we did my mother, we'll do my father. He did the famous, okay. So, there's two songs that I think he could be talking about, but I can't think he's talking, as much as I love Shania Twain. I don't think he's talking about You're Still the One. I think he's talking about by Orleans. You're Still the One.
Yeah.
If I had to guess, that would be the song I think my father is talking about, which is a beautiful song, amazing song. I listen to the song on the regular, probably because my parents.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the song he picked. Now, I do love Shania, but I just don't think that's it.
I mean, as we know, Shania Twain is fantastic.
She can do no wrong.
Though much of her success is due to Mutt Lange. And if you listen closely to any of those classic Shania Twain songs, it has a male vocal doubled in there or tripled in there. And that is Mutt Lange. And he applied that production genius to the Shania catalog.
He is a genius, but Shania in of herself is
No,
amazing.
sure,
so.
absolutely. You know, she is a talent
don't
too.
Don't you give the man the...
No, but I mean,
out.
you can't talk about classic Shania without talking about Mutt Lange. Because
there is the production quality is what made it. Her production quality was bar none amazing. And it's so funny because I had heard the name Mutt Lange 2 or 3 times thrown out until we did this podcast. And now I was doing this podcast and I actually started to like, do you know what I mean, Tim? Doing the work and reading about these songs. Like, you know what you know, but you don't realize it. Kind of goes back to the times that I've now learned, like, literally artists are doing the backup singers to multiple songs I didn't know they were doing. But after I learned it, Tim, I can't unhear it.
Well, as we know, the classic example of that is You're So Vain, which features Mick Jagger on backing vocals. And once you hear it, you cannot unhear it.
But Mutt Lange is one of those people that now that I know he's singing on the backing of songs, I can hear him because he has a twang to his voice and it works. And to his credit, he did a great job with Shania because their voices work so well, Tim.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
even it was like bar none perfect.
Even if they didn't work together, Mutt Lange would find a way.
He would have. But that's what I'm just saying. It was very lucky in its sense that it did. Now, on to the band Orleans, which is kind of like, I don't know, probably like a 2 or 3 hit kind of early 60s, 70s bands if you're not familiar with them. Still the one... still the one after all these years that I run to is what she said, but it's literally the same lyrics, but just a different song. I just realized that as I went to sing it, they're literally the same song, but in a different way, because Still the One by Orleans is very upbeat, happy, whereas Shania's is a little bit more dramatic.
Absolutely.
With that being said, that was my father's pick. All right. So we have one more pick from the people. Now, I don't think you know this person, but I do. And she's a friend of mine, and I think she may listen to the podcast. And she may have even been the person who left us that little feedback the other day, my friend Sharon, because she is in Radford. And I just recently learned that she really likes our podcast. So I love the band Bowling for Soup. Tim has heard of the band Bowling for Soup, but I feel like you've only heard of like their hits. Am I crazy? Is that wrong?
I've heard of the name Bowling for Soup, and I don't really know of any Bowling for Soup music.
Well, if you've heard that song, 1985, that's them. Or no, it's lost. There's a song that it's ironic that Tim hasn't heard this. I have to. All right, guys, we're gonna get Tim a schooling on Bowling for Soup. All right,
okay.
I'm not really going to, but I will give him some background. So there was a song that they came. The most known song from Bowling for Soup is 1985. It's literally a song about getting old, which I find funny because basically Debbie just hit the wall. She never had it all. 1 per second day. Husband's a CPA. Her dreams went out the door when she turned 24. Only been with one man. What happened? But anyway, it goes on. Since Bruce Springsteen Madonna way before Nirvana, there was YouTube and Blondie and music still on MTV. That's the lyrics, Tim.
Wow, okay.
And so... because she's still preoccupied with 1985. That's their most famous song.
Yeah, maybe if I hear it, but it's not ringing any bells.
I feel like you have heard this song. She knows all the classics. She knows Anyway, so the irony is it's about a woman who's obsessed with the 80s because, Tim may be obsessed with the 80s, guys.
It's the golden decade. Everything you need is in the 80s.
So the song was written about Tim and his friend. But anyway, so the song that was picked is what's known as Shut Up and Smile, which is one of their songs that I think is, I love it. I went and actually, so we've talked about how many different bands do not come to the area me and Tim are in. We usually have to travel an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours to get. Mm-hmm. They weirdly came to Blacksburg. Bowling for Soup came to Blacksburg 2 or 3 years ago, and it was sponsored by a club that was, and this is not, don't come for me, this is literally what it's sponsored by, a Jewish, like some type of Jewish club type thing. I don't know, some type of event. They were just, that's who they were for
Okay.
Virginia Tech, which is the school beside us. And they brought in Bowling for Soup. And me and Molly actually, well, Molly specifically stayed after and helped. We thought it was going to be super cool. We're like, oh, we get to help them like break down. No, they just made us push their heavy equipment. But anyway. So we thought it was going to be really great to see Bowling for Soup, but they had put on, it was at the Lyric, which is a very small venue. Tim could tell you that. It's just a literal theater. And it was so funny, though. I still stick by this with Bowling for Soup. And I laugh about this every day, Tim, because so Stacy's mom, everybody thinks they sang that song because the lead singer sounds the exact same. It's not. That was by Fountains of Wayne. We were in that concert, Tim, and I kid you not, some college kid from Virginia Tech, the local college, that's for people who don't know, yelled, "Sing Stacy's mom." And me and Molly looked at each other and we're like, why are they telling them to sing Stacy's mom? We were so confused because that's not their song, right? Well, he came, and so the lead singer of Bowling for Soup goes, "You guys want us to sing Stacy's mom?" And they're like, "Yeah!" Like 70 people in the audience start screaming, "Yeah!" And me and Molly are still really confused. Turns out that song has been credited to Bowling for Soup for years, so much so that they even put their own version of it out because the lead singers, that pop punk, they both had that high pitched kind of sound that was really popular during that day, and so much so they have their own version of it, and they did a version of it. And they're like, I find it really funny, Tim. And I still stand by this. I would go see a Bowling for Soup concert over and over again because he went, "That's not our song." But anyway. And he just started singing it. He goes, "Everybody thinks it is, so we might as well make money."
There we go.
I still crack up every time I think about that. They also did the theme song for this cartoon called Phineas and Ferb, which I know Tim does not know, but that's okay. And when they were performing, they performed the theme song. They also did the new version of Scooby-Doo, the theme song, and they performed both Phineas and Ferb and Scooby-Doo in concert. I mean, that's quality entertainment, everybody.
I mean,
they
I
know
tell
what the
you,
people want.
you got your money's worth on your evening at the Lyric, let me tell you.
But the thing about it is, Tim, is those things are fun. Like they don't take themselves very seriously. Do you know what I mean? That's what was fun about it. Was how like when you see certain bands, U2 or Coldplay, where it feels like they're taking themselves a little too seriously.
Sure.
Just a little bit. Sometimes fun can be cool, Tim's never had fun in his life. He doesn't know.
I've had the most fun in my life, let me tell you.
Now, for Sharon who put this song, this Shut Up and Smile, this one has a great chorus because it has one of those classics like where you can sing along la, la, la in the chorus. So it's a good choice. It does make me feel a lot of happiness. So before we go on to what the Reddit, so that's the end of what people submitted to us. I would like to ask Tim a certain question.
Yes.
Tim, if you had to pick one song that you think, just don't overthink it, just whatever comes to mind, makes you happy, what would you pick?
Kool and the Gang Celebration.
That's a very good choice. See, what's going to be funny is I'm going to pick something people would have thought Tim was going to pick. I always have to say, "Don't Stop Me Now" by Queen.
Yeah, and that's a great song too. I mean, but there's something about Kool and the Gang Celebration when it starts. It just puts you in a good space, good headspace.
Well, and you've seen Kool and the Gang. Well, what is Kool and the Gang? I know that they're not all the same now. And
I have seen Kool and the Gang supporting Van Halen in Greensboro in 2012.
Fair enough. All right. So before I put this out to the Facebooks and block Tim from seeing everything. Finn is the name of my dog, by the way. Guys don't know where that came from. But anyway, Tim from seeing all the Facebook things. I did go on the Reddits to see what other people were saying. Because Joy needs happiness in her life right now. She's feeling a little down. We just need some happiness. And I love some of the choices. And this is another one that I would have picked if I didn't pick. No, I will say Don't Stop Me Now was on the list, Tim. Other people said that one.
Okay.
Let's Go Crazy by Prince.
I could see that.
Was the top rated one. And I've never, when it goes, "Let's Go Crazy," and then you just have like that drop in the song, it's perfect. It gives you all the right feels.
Yeah,
Also, it's
and
Prince.
and there's some live versions of that from the '80s era that are absolutely fantastic. It's got some killer guitar playing from Prince on it. I mean, it's not a traditional happiness song in my opinion, but it is a great song and it is very up
Really? Because
tempo
it's
and
like, let's
upbeat.
go crazy. And then that, like, that doesn't make you feel happy?
It does, but I mean, it doesn't. It's I think on the happiness scale, "Celebration" by Kool and the Gang eclipses it.
Okay, fine. Now, this one is one that gives me all the warm feels, and I love this song. I forget about it occasionally. It's Peace Train by Cat Stevens.
Yeah, this is a great song. I've been listening to a lot of Cat Stevens this week, actually.
That's kind of random because he's one of those artists that I feel like I forget about, and then he just like reappears when I need the right vibes. Do you find Cat Stevens to be a folk artist? Is that what you would?
Yeah, he is a folk artist.
Okay.
Always was a folk artist.
I feel like he's a pop folk artist, though. I don't think he's like. I feel like he has a little bit of mainstream success, right? I'm not crazy.
I mean, he had a lot of mainstream success in the '60s and '70s. But yeah, it's folk at its roots. But yeah, I think some of the stuff borders into pop territory. But at heart, he is a folk artist.
I find it very interesting. This is a song that was chosen because for those who don't realize this, that I know Tim knows this, it's a song about Vietnam.
Sure.
I mean, the war, Vietnam, the war, not just Vietnam, the country, everybody. But I think he did a great job of like, and it's super interesting. I know Cat Stevens didn't write the song. He didn't write the song. Music, shocker, everybody! Spoiler alert. He didn't write the song. He just sang it really well. But I just feel like it comes off as a song that is all about happiness, and sometimes it's so interesting when you get to the core of what the song is. But anyway, all right. I feel like Tim will love this choice because it's right up his alley. So we're going down the Reddit that other people said, and they said "One More Time" by Daft Punk.
Yeah,
One more time.
Yeah,
Gonna celebrate.
this is on the album prior to Random Access Memories. This is earlier Daft Punk. But no,
Yeah.
this is a great song.
I feel like it's one of their most popular too. Like if I think of Daft Punk, this might be the first song that. I mean, yeah, you've got like "Around the World" and stuff, but I feel like this is the first song that comes to mind for me personally.
Sure, and it's got a good vibe to it. I mean, I've got a Daft Punk live album, believe it or not, in my collection, and
Yeah.
it's I don't know, it plays out well when they were performing it live. I don't know quite what they're actually triggering on stage to make it a live concert. I have absolutely no idea, but it is a great song and it's got a good feel about it.
So what's super interesting is this was one that I feel like I went through a few different Reddit boards, right, Tim? I was just trying to get a feel for what everybody was saying. And I guess I kind of forgot this song it exists, but everybody picked Mr. Blue Sky, ELO.
Hmm.
And I was like, okay, I mean, that does sound really great, but I did go back and listen to it, headphones on, like clear mind. Freaking amazing song.
Yeah, it is a masterpiece of arrangement. It is really well
like
done. The guitar break in it, everything about it is good.
Like, I feel like it's one of those songs that we hear so often we take for granted almost in a weird way.
Yeah, and you know the interesting thing at the end of Mr. Blue Sky, it has a vocoder, where it makes the voice sound all robotic. And
Yeah.
the on the actual album it comes from, it was the last track on side one.
Yeah.
And if you have the full length version of it, at the end of it, the vocoder voice says, "Please turn me over."
That's amazing. I didn't know that, but I love that. And what's super interesting is when I was doing the research for this episode, because everybody kept talking about the song, I'm like, I mean, I know Mr. Blue Sky. I've heard it 1,000 times. So I was like, let me put my headphones on. Let me feel it. It has a violin, a cello, string basses, a horn, and a woodwind section in it.
It is. It is full on. It is full on orchestral pop rock excellence.
It's like the best mix of rock and orchestra. I don't know how best to explain it. That's what it is.
It's building on what the Beatles started.
I mean, we could be here all day if we want to talk about how the Beatles started it all. All right, I don't know how much Tim knows this band. I don't know that they come up, but he may or may not know the song. But for those of us who are me or around my age, "Float On" by Modest Mouse. Does that
No.
ring a bell?
I've heard of the band Modest Mouse, but I don't know any of their music.
So in this song, I love there's a lyric. Hold on, I'm going to bring up the lyrics, everybody. We're giving it a Google Live on air because I want to say this for real for what it is. There's a lyric in this song that I absolutely adore, and I find it funny. It's literally like one of the openings of the song. Of course, now that I'm trying to do it, my internet decided it wants to be slow. All right. The opening verse of this song says, I backed my car into a cop car the other day. Well, he just drove off. Sometimes life's okay. I ran my mouth off a bit too much. Oh, what did I say? Well, you just laughed it off. It'll all be okay. And we'll all float on.
There we go.
Great song lyrics, right?
Sure.
But anyway, this song is one of the ones that I mean, it would have been early 2000s, probably like 2002, 2003 when this song came out. Very what I was talking about with Fuse, like this song played on Fuse, what I was talking about earlier. But I just love that because he literally, the opening of songs, I backed my car into a cop car the other day. Well, he just drove off. Sometimes life's okay. And I remember that deep in my soul, Tim. I don't know. Sometimes you have to remember. It'll all be all right. All right. So, Tim, shut me off, but we're getting close to time because I'm not keeping up with any time.
Well, I tell you what, do one more song from your Reddit collection and then we'll probably be about close.
So I have to leave it with one of the best songs of all time. Well, maybe the best band of all time. Don't come for me, internet, but Tim won't be shocked. It's the Beatles. Here Comes the Sun.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great song. This is a classic. I mean, and it is a happy, happy song.
And I mean, maybe I'm a sucker for movies in the sense that I don't watch a lot of movies, but you know how the song is used in every moment when, like, here comes the sun, like everything's going to be okay. Like, it's that song, right? Kind of like there's a few other songs that I think, but this one sits up there. But there is something that they put in this song that feels like bad stuff are happening and you just rise above it.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain it. I don't know if you ever, you can't explain that with words, but they somehow put that in. I know there's probably some psychology behind it and the way they wrote the music or whatever. But even the Beatles have admitted they're not like virtuosos. You know what I mean? When it comes to actually songwriting, they just know what people want. Mm-hmm. And there's something in this song. Now, Paul McCartney at this point, I would say is a virtuoso, right? But the rest of them have never really claimed to be. Paul McCartney, you could literally give him a paper bag and a spoon and somehow he could make a song out of it. But I digress. But with that being said, something in this song is therapeutic. I don't know what it is, what they put in there. What did they do? I don't know.
Yeah, it's just an incredibly well-written song. I think it's a George Harrison song. Certainly George Harrison sings it.
I think it is written by him. Let's double check before the internet comes forth, but I think Tim's right. Don't come for me, internet, and my classic words. The amount of times I've probably said something wrong on this podcast is astronomical. Yes, was written and sung by George Harrison. Tim is correct, everybody. We will not take his Beatles card away from him tonight. All right, Tim. Well, with our happiness episode and bringing some happiness into the world, what would you like to leave the people with? My phone went off.
Yeah, just be kind to everyone that you meet and also be kind to people that call you when you're doing a podcast recording.
It's only just, they're not calling me. They're sending me messages because my do not disturb ended because we just hit an hour. So Tim's timing was perfect, everybody.
There we go.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye.